President Trump railed against special counsel Robert Mueller and the Russia investigation again today in the wake of a weekend New York Times report that the White House counsel has sat for extensive interviews with Mueller's team. On Twitter today, the president accused Mueller of being, quote, angry Democratic thugs, his team that is, and looking for trouble. We'll look at the state of that investigation after the news summary. Mr. Trump also criticized again former CIA Director John Brennan, whom the president stripped of his security clearance last week. Brennan hinted yesterday that he might take legal action to prevent the president from removing other officials' clearances. Mr. Trump shot back on Twitter, "I hope John Brennan, the worst CIA director in our country's history, brings a lawsuit." Today, 177 former U.S. State and Defense Department officials added their names to a letter opposing the president's removal of Brennan's clearance, saying that former officials should be allowed to speak freely. As President Trump sounded off on Twitter, his wife spoke out against cyberbullying as part of her so-called Be Best campaign, promoting children's well-being. At a government summit on bullying prevention in Maryland today, First Lady Melania Trump urged social media and tech companies to promote good online behavior.
In today's global society, social media is an inevitable part of our children's daily lives. It can be used in many positive ways, but can also be destructive and harmful when used incorrectly.
A spokeswoman for Mrs. Trump said she is, quote, aware of the criticism she's received for highlighting online harassment, while the president often uses Twitter to taunt his political foes. But she said that criticism, quote, will not deter the First Lady from doing what she feels is right. Later today, Mrs. Trump announced that she has plans for a solo trip to Africa this fall. Last January, her husband referred to African countries by a crude term. Pope Francis today condemned the Catholic Church's role in covering up child sexual abuse by priests. It marked his first personal response to a scathing report revealing misconduct in parishes across Pennsylvania. In a letter to all Catholics, the Pope asked forgiveness from the victims and urged a change in the culture that enabled the abuse. He called on the Church to acknowledge and condemn with sorrow and shame the atrocities perpetrated by clergy. We will take a closer look at the uproar over the latest church scandal later in the program. In Turkey, police have detained 2 suspects in a shooting attack at the U.S. Embassy in Ankara. Officials say the men confessed to firing at the building from their car this morning. No one was injured. It comes amid an escalating diplomatic dispute between Washington and Ankara. The countries slapped tariffs on each other after Turkey refused to release a detained American pastor. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan today condemned what he says is an economic attack.
There is no difference between the attack on our economy and the attack on our prayer and our flag. The aim is the same. The aim is to bring Turkey and Turkish people to their knees and take them hostages. Those who failed to bring down Turkey through terrorist organizations, treacherous gangs, thousands of tricks and traps, think they can make Turkey give up through exchange rate, but they will soon see they are mistaken.
The Turkish lira has lost 40% of its value against the dollar this year, a slide that was exacerbated by recent U.S. tariffs on imported Turkish metals. In an interview today, President Trump vowed that he would make no concessions to Turkey for the release of the American pastor. Venezuela's government implemented a major currency overhaul today as part of an effort to mitigate the country's economic crisis. It devalues Venezuela's bolivar by 96%. The government also plans to hike the minimum wage by 3,000% and raise gas prices to international levels. Venezuelans rush to stock up on food and other items before prices climb even higher. Economists say inflation there could hit 1,000,000% this year. Greece emerged from its final bailout today after 8 years of harsh austerity measures, leaving the country free to set its own economic policies. The Eurozone and International Monetary Fund lent over $300 billion to Greece since its economic crisis began in 2010. European officials touted the program as a success, citing a growing economy and an unemployment rate that has fallen under 20% from a peak of 28% in 2013.
The end today of the European support program to Greece is a very important moment. I would even say historic for all of us, and above all for the Greek people. These were 8 difficult years, often painful, which were marked by 3 successive programs. But now Greece can finally draw a line under a crisis which has lasted for too long.
Many Greek households have suffered under the austerity measures. 1/3 of the country's population is at risk of poverty. In Afghanistan, security forces rescued 149 hostages taken by the Taliban in the northern Kunduz province. Taliban fighters fled the battle with 21 captives. Security forces remain on alert after the Taliban rejected a government ceasefire proposal for the Eid al-Adha holiday this week. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said in a statement on Sunday the U.S. is ready to facilitate peace talks between the two sides. A series of powerful earthquakes rocked 2 Indonesian islands overnight, killing at least a dozen people. Aftershocks followed a magnitude 6.9 quake that hit the islands of Lombok and Sumbawa. They caused landslides and damage to more than 1,800 homes. Lombok is still recovering from an earthquake that struck there 2 weeks ago, killing 460 people. Back in this country, President Trump said that he was, quote, not thrilled with the chair of the Federal Reserve's policy of gradually raising interest rates. In an interview with Reuters, the president said that the U.S. Central Bank under Jerome Powell should be more accommodating. Mr. Trump also repeated his charge that China and Russia, or rather China and Europe, manipulate currency. It was a strong day on Wall Street. It ended with a dip after the president's comments about the Federal Reserve. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 89 points to close at 25,758. The Nasdaq rose 4 points to close at 7821, and the S&P 500 gained 7 to close at 2857. Still to come on the NewsHour, the White House counsel cooperating with Robert Mueller's investigation. How Catholics view the Pope's response to the church sex abuse scandal. On the ground in Nevada, where immigration is playing into a key U.S. Senate race, and much more.